We have lots of debt because we have too much revenue. Any entity, whether it's an individual, business, or a government, known to be taking in a lot of money and expected to take in a lot more in the future, will always be able to borrow and will borrow. And so we have a revenue problem, but people keep calling it a spending problem or an undertaxation problem, and that's dangerous, and it's a mistake.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. With us, rare treat, one of my first guests, John Tamny. You were with me when I literally had three people watching the channel. Two of them were related to me, and the third one was me. And you stuck with me for 15 years here. I can't express my gratitude enough. But what we were talking about 15 years ago is true now. Obviously, you know it as president of Parkview Institute, editor of Real Clear Markets, and your latest book is The Deficit Delusion. And that's just one of the many delusions that are taking place here. The deficit, if I could sum it up, would be a non-issue if the government didn't spend so much money, right?
No, I think that presumes that Haiti's politicians, that they're just classical liberals, or Russia's politicians are classical liberals. They just choose not to spend, and that's why they don't have debt. No, we have lots of debt because we have too much revenue. Any entity, whether it's an individual, business, or a government, known to be taking in a lot of money and expected to take in a lot more in the future, will always be able to borrow and will borrow. And so we have a revenue problem, but people keep calling it a spending problem or an undertaxation problem, and that's dangerous, and it's a mistake.
Well, we're spending. One thing Doge has shown us, it's kind of lifted the veil off of the ridiculous things that the government finds to basically piss our money away on. Don't you think?
Yes. I'm happy for things like Doge, although I say in the book that it's not going to work, and I knew it wouldn't work because for one, it's just hard to get government to give up what's already being spent on. Ronald Reagan knew that when he got into office in the 1980s. He found out that every program had at least one Republican constituent, so there's no way to cut anything. But there's the other problem. Let's say Elon Musk had succeeded and got $2 trillion in savings. Smaller government? Oh, please. Because suddenly Congress has $2 trillion in fresh powder, fresh money to start spending on new programs. And they all start small, but once they start, they grow and grow. Medicare, as I point out in the book, began as a $3 billion program. It's on the verge of being a $1 trillion program, assuming it's not already. And so I don't want spending cuts. Again, it's not about spending. We have a revenue problem. And until we address the fact that we've got too much revenue now and exponentially more in the future, debt's going to keep going up.
And even if they don't have enough revenue, they just print the difference, right?
I would reject that. If we were printing the difference, if Treasury really had to print to pay off its debt or to fund government, then we wouldn't have much debt. Because who would buy income streams that are being printed? Let's never forget that we don't earn dollars, and we don't buy dollar income streams. We buy what dollars can be exchanged for. And so if Treasury were printing this, no one would want to own treasuries in the first place, and there wouldn't be any debt.
Well, some of it's being printed. If partial monetization has to be taking place. got to be. Well, because 70% of our debt that's out there now is interest on prior debt, right?
Okay, well, let's see. I argue in the book that's a good thing. Wait, so you're going to tell me we're libertarians? You're going to tell me that a growing portion of total federal spending is just paying off debt? Well, good. What I don't want to hear is that a growing portion of federal spending is introducing new programs.
Well, that's
and
for sure.
And so I make a case in the book that, look, Social Security is a bad idea. Medicare is a really bad idea. Keep them, because they're a barrier to bigger government because they consume more and more of the total budget along with interest payments. Let those roll, and that gives us time to maybe actually have a real discussion about the debt, that it's a problem of too much tax revenue. So let's actually reduce taxes so substantially so as to not have a Laffer curve effect. That's why we have so much debt. Government revenue keeps going up. But let's actually bring revenue down so substantially that people don't want to lend to us in the first place.
Well, we're on our way. Hey, what about, like Doge? It was successful in certain aspects. Maybe it turned into more of a political weapon than a economic savior. But now they're talking about, by January 20th, eliminating 100,000 government regulations that are obsolete, illegal, conflicting, or make no sense whatsoever. And they've got the tools in place to do it. What do you think will happen if we get to January 20th of 2026 and they actually get rid of all those regs, John?
I'll take it. I like it. A regulation's a tax like anything else. Regulations, you're quite literally asking people who could not get jobs in certain industries to oversee those who could and basically tell them what to do. What an awful idea. Get rid of them every which way you can. And so thumbs up. No, you're right. Look, not all of Doge was bad. Anything that shines a light on what government does is, I think, a very good thing. But when I'm so tired, and I quote Musk in the book. I venerate him. He's a remarkable human being. Thank goodness he lives in the United States. But it's just so exhausting to hear about how, well, we're headed toward bankruptcy and this is the end. And oh my gosh, no, we're not. If we were headed toward bankruptcy, we wouldn't have any debt. The real scandal is the fact that we've got $37 trillion in debt, and the markets keep bidding down the yields on treasuries. What does that tell you? It tells you that Americans are massively overtaxed now and in the future, such that the $37 trillion is a yawn. Of course we can pay it off. It's nothing to us, and it's nothing relative to where we're headed in terms of revenue collection.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things that people, many of you out there, fail to connect is that the income tax and the Federal Reserve almost implemented simultaneously, right? You can't have without the other.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, the income tax was a disaster. You know me, last time I was on, I think we vastly overstate the impact of the Fed. I just don't think it's that important, one way or the other. This is not me defending the Fed. But I just, when people say, well, yeah, look at the value of the dollar since the Fed was opened up. Well, no, actually, it was in 1933 that FDR devalued the dollar, and Fed Chairman Eugene Meyer was adamantly opposed to it, but had no power to block FDR. So he resigned and bought the Washington Post to use it as a vehicle to criticize this inflationary president. In 1971, Fed Chairman Arthur Burns begged Richard Nixon, do not sever the dollar's link to gold. He was once again powerless to control what Nixon did. You know, presidents get the dollar they want, sadly. And so I just think this focus on the Fed is counterproductive.
All right. I'm agreeing with you. I think their power is less and less, but it appears that the world is heading towards some type of economic crisis. Pre-call, we're talking about price of gold over $4,000 an ounce. Today, The price of silver broke 50, which is a multi-generational high. We haven't seen it go that high since the Hunt brothers debacle back in, I guess it was 1990, if memory serves me correct.
1980.
80. Off by a decade. So it's multi-generational. It's a multi-generational high. And silver was the only commodity to not reach a new high in the past 45 years. So that's pretty noteworthy, isn't it?
It's hugely noteworthy. I think so. I first came on your show 15 years ago. If you had asked me or I had asked you, imagine gold at 4,000 in 15 years and silver at 50, we'd say, oh my gosh, wow. But to me, and so it terrifies me, but to me, it's not a future crisis. It's a now crisis. But see, you don't see it. And what I mean by that, and no one sees it, imagine people buying up, as they're doing, silver and gold. They are buying wealth that already exists. They are buying two commodities that as the dollar weakens, they go up. And so it's a natural hedge against the dollar or any currency's decline. Oh, what a tragedy. We're talking about AI right now and all the advances with it, and I'm loving every minute of it. But think how much more advanced we would be right here and right now if the dollar hadn't been so persistently devalued all of the 21st century. What have we not done? What are we not doing? And so the crisis is now. And the crisis is now because people are buying inflation hedges rather than stock and bond income streams representing the creation of future wealth. And it really saddens me. But let's not insult what's really tragic by saying it's something in the future. It's right now.
Mm-hmm.
And people are buying gold. That is a really bad sign.
Yeah. It's a loss of confidence in the system, right?
It's a loss of confidence in the future. It's a loss of confidence that in putting wealth to David Bahnsen, the investor, I thought put it well, not about gold, but he said, I've never wanted to buy buildings. I always wanted to buy the people inside the buildings. and buying gold is just buying something that does well when money's not doing well. Good heavens. Again, it's not matching talent with capital, which is the ways of progress. Economic growth is not consumption. That's what economists think. And that's why the economics profession is such an embarrassment and such a dangerously diluted profession. Economic growth is investment. And there's, as the 4,000 gold price indicates, there's less investment than there otherwise would be.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it takes away from investment, and the whole system runs on confidence, right?
It runs on confidence, but it runs. Let's elevate the speculation. What does George Gilder call quote bubbles? I hate bubbles. I think that's an absurdity. But he always says they're growth spasms. There's these big speculative, something news along the way. We're going to direct enormous amounts of capital to them. Lots of failure will be left in its wake. And that's the good thing. Look at all we've learned through all this investment. You learn nothing when you buy gold. You learn nothing when you buy silver. You just know that, I've succeeded because the dollar is worth less than it was. What a tragedy. There's no progress going on here. And so that's the crisis. Well, could there be a future crisis whereby government, in response to its horrid oversight of the dollar, does even dumber things? Yes, I think that's what happened in 2008. I'll go to my grave saying that the crisis was not financial. It was an effect of George W. Bush and other Republicans and Ben Bernanke. This is not a knock on Republicans, but Republicans always want to intervene in the natural workings of the markets. Of course, they created a crisis. And so I worry that could happen again.
Yeah. So if it does happen again, how do you protect yourself against that type of thing?
Oh, it's Gosh, it's a great question. I don't know. It's hard to protect yourself. Sometimes gold goes down in these scenarios. Sometimes it goes up. But yeah, you probably want to have exposure to wealth that already exists.
Mhm.
If there's a quote crisis, stocks are less attractive because stocks are a look ahead, and a quote crisis signals that government is intervening in ways it's basically substituting itself for the marketplace. And so the future becomes more bleak as a result. And it's frustrating to see. Where is Larry Kudlow on this? Where's Steve Moore? Where are all these
Yeah.
Republicans? Why won't they go to President Trump and say, you have got a problem on your hands? You want economic growth, but you want a weak dollar, which is inimical to growth precisely because it's inimical to investment. Is Scott Bessent just going to keep being Treasury Secretary while being utterly oblivious to the declining dollar? Is this what we've come to as Republicans? They can be better than this.
I would hope, but you know, um, we've just seen this like so many times here, and the one thing we learned from history, John, is we don't learn from history, right?
Yep.
So,
Well, yeah, it's hard to learn from history if we don't understand history. And let's go travel back in time to 2008. To this day, the history is that it was a financial crisis. No, it was a crisis of intervention. Economies grow and gain strength from weakness, as in when the bad ideas are allowed to die. That's the sign of an economy growing because bad ideas are being relieved of precious resources. The crisis was one of intervention. To this day, the vast majority of people say, well, the economy crashed in 2020 because of the coronavirus. No, the coronavirus didn't cause any business to die. It didn't close any school. It didn't close any business. It didn't eviscerate supply chains. Panicky politicians did that. And so can we learn from history when the historians keep stepping on the punchline and the truth? Politicians cause crises because they intervene and substitute themselves for the marketplace.
mhm.
And they root it in, well, if we don't do something, the result is going to be a crisis. Well, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are the crisis. They were in 2008. They were in 2020. And so my fear is that there's going to be another hiccup related to this relentless rush into wealth that exists, gold instead of wealth that doesn't yet exist, stock and bond income streams. And the result is going to be government intervening in ways that really harm us yet again.
All right. Well, you're a breath of fresh air, but at least if you get people talking about it, maybe there's a chance. When we ignore these things, then they come back to bite us in the you know where.
Well, you're right. And so thank goodness that people like you are doing this, that you've stuck with it for all this time. Three watchers 15 years ago, and look at where you are today. Let's keep having the discussion. Markets do not cause crises. People do not cause crises simply because when people fail, they're relieved of their ability to continue failing. It's just pure logic, which that's not a crisis. That's better. That's a sign we're improving. Politicians cause crises. Let's shout it from the mountaintop over and over again. And they're causing a crisis right now. The dollar is the world's currency. And we have a president who thinks it's good for economic growth to devalue it. And we have a Treasury Secretary who's going along with this, not talking to the markets and saying we don't like the direction of the weak dollar. It's really sad and it's really frustrating. The Republicans close to President Trump won't make more noise.
Yeah, and like there's like another thing when interest rates are heading lower, that's a sign of bad economic activity. In the old days, before the Great Depression, when interest rates went up, that was bullish because there was demand for money, investment taking place, all of this. So we kind of need to get back to our basics, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's very important too. People always say, well, higher interest rates are a sign of a credit crunch. Really? Well, it's probably a sign that those with title to money are taking bigger risks with it. The scariest times are when we're at 1% or zero. That's a sign that those with access to capital aren't taking any risk, that they're literally directing it to the surest of sure things as opposed to new ideas. And so, yeah, everything's upside down right now. And it becomes more upside down when the nitwits at the Fed say, well, we're gonna go to zero because money's tight right now. Well, imagine that. And then these are economists. These are economists who would say, if you impose rent controls on Manhattan apartments, there will be fewer apartments for rent.
Yeah.
How is capital any different? And yet they always go to zero and they say, oh, well, see, we're doing our part. Well, no, you're not doing your part. There's always going to be a price for capital, and it's never going to be zero. And it's never going to be 1%.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the same thing. If we raise the minimum wage, we could create more unemployment. That's been proven time and time again. And yet we never learn.
Yeah. You don't mess with prices, and politicians mess with prices. Donald Trump loves messing with prices.
Yeah.
And it's just sad. Again, I think there's at times good instincts from him, but it just frustrates me that no one close to him is willing to say, you know what, you don't talk that way. And you're shrinking yourself, you're shrinking your economic program, everything about it when you talk that way.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, tell us again where we find you, how we connect with you on the web, and find out more about what you're doing and buy your book.
Yes. Well, thank you as always, Kerry, for having me on. You can find me at Real Clear Markets every day. I'm on Twitter every day. I put out at least one column every day. And of course, you can find all my books on Amazon. Everyone watching should buy several copies of each and pass them around and read them and lovingly caress the pages, all that.
All right. Hey, appreciate you coming on as always. I've written a couple of books as well in the process, and got this book here, The World According to Martin Armstrong. Talks about a lot of the issues that you've discussed as well. Appreciate you coming on. And if you have any questions or comments for John or myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. John, we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.